there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. So today is a really fun technique and it gives amazing results for what we are using. Now I am going to be using stencils today. This is all about stenciling except for I don't want the pattern that the stencil has. I want the reverse of what the pattern has. And so there are a few ways to go about this. I'm going to show you a couple of ways. But I'm also going to show you one way that gives pretty much pristine results every time. So you can see that I have a range of stencils here. These are just any stencils, any companies, anything that I have. And some of them are very delicate and some of them are a little more chunky. This one here is a mandala pattern, and so it is pretty fine detailed. But first of all, we're going to kind of do a little experiment. I have just got the stencil here and I'm going to get a Distress Oxide and wipe it all on one side of it, then get a clean little piece here, pop down a little piece of paper, then I'm going to pop one on top just so I can get a really good press and give it lots of good pressure without having to get ink all over my hand. I've even got a little tool here to make sure I get really good pressure. And then when I turn this over, the results are, I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not brilliant either. It's not really very clear at all, to be honest. I am going to open the piece of paper back up, put on another layer of the picked raspberry. This time I'm going to do just a couple of little spritzes of water, and this will kind of activate the ink, hopefully to get a little more on my piece of paper when I try and take a print, because for this technique I don't want the print that I would get from a stencil if I were to just ink blend through it. I want the actual stencil. I want that pattern, so it's the reverse stencil. So with a little bit of water, here are the results, and I mean, it's kind of getting better. I'll bring the other one in here beside it so that you can see for comparison. It's a little brighter, perhaps a little bit clearer, but I would say these results are still pretty average. Now I'm going to add one more layer of the picked raspberries, so there's fresh ink on there. Then I'm going to close it up. I'm going to put quite a lot of water on. You can see I'm spritzing probably 7 or 8 times there. This is sped up a little bit as well. And I'm going to put my little piece of paper down, and then when I take this one off, you will see the results. And this one I think is definitely the best. This is pretty good results in my opinion, and about as good as it's going to get for this technique, especially given that the stencil is pretty delicate. There's a lot of very fine lines and quite a lot of detail in this one. I'm going to dry this because this one has the most water. So even though I'm using the same technique, the same tools, I'm using a different amount of water, and it makes a big difference. So if you are trying something, it is worth just changing things up a little bit every time until you get results that you are satisfied with or happy with using. So this was just a really fun kind of experiment. You can see there on the left, it is no water. In the middle, there's about 2 or 3 squirts of water. And then on the right hand side, there's about 7 or 8 squirts, which feels like a lot. Now I have another stencil here, so the first one is with no water. The next one here is with a little few squirts. There's probably 2 or 3 there. And then this last one gives a pretty good impression of that stencil. So that's pretty good and worth giving a go if you are after that kind of thing using ink. And now I am going to show you a great technique. This is fun. So I'm using some VersaMark sticky embossing ink. I'm using this one. This is the only sticky embossing ink that I own because this one is the best that I have ever tried. It gives me the best results over and over. There is a re-inker for it, which is worth purchasing, and I like this brand in particular. Now, once I have done that, I've got my little piece of paper here, which I'm going to pop my little anti-static powder bag down onto. Not necessary, but I feel like it just gives me that extra little layer of security. Then I make sure I take it off that white piece of paper because that is what has some of the residue of the VersaFine through it. The VersaMark sticky embossing ink, and I don't want any extras. I lay it down carefully on top of the stencil, so it's going, the VersaMark is face up at the moment. I'm using a little bit of mint tape just to hold this as I run this through my die cutting machine. Now I'm running this through like I would pretty much an embossing folder. You just need to try in your machine and see, you just need decent contact. You can see there's actually left a bit of a pattern there. You can use an embossing mat, which is like that squishy kind of rubbery mat. That is going to work well too. Just see what works for your different machines that you have. Doesn't need incredible pressure, but good pressure is good. And then I am taking some, in this case, gold embossing powder, sprinkling it over top of my image, and I get a really perfect pattern come through, and I am really pleased with these results. This is a very fine and intricate stencil, and so I pop the rest of the powder back into the pot, and this is where I need to heat set this. I have this sped up. It doesn't quite go as fast as this, but this is a really fun technique. So using VersaMark and some embossing powder, we can get the kind of reverse of what the stencil was originally going to be. And I think often I look at a stencil and I really like what I'm looking at, but then when I stencil through it, I think, it looks a bit incomplete or not quite what I was thinking. So I guess this technique feels really good. I love this. I had so much fun, I will tell you. I am all for finding lots of different ways that we can use the products that we choose to purchase over and over again in so many different ways, and this is a really fun way. So I was really pleased that I tried this and it worked out really well. So this one I've done again. I've put my VersaMark on. I'm carefully putting my little piece of paper there straight down on top of the VersaMark. I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. Now for me, sometimes I also had to add a little shim. This is just several pieces of paper, copy paper folded over. These will not go to waste, but it just creates a nice little extra layer of shim so that it goes through and I get a really good impression there on my piece of paper. Now I did have some little helpers come in at this point. They heard me doing some heat embossing and they were very excited to join in. So I have two with me. I have my son on my knee. He is 3 now. He's turned 3 and he just loves to help. And my daughter, who is 6, and she pretty much can do it all by herself now. She has watched my techniques for a long time. We have spent a lot of time crafting together and she can do a lot of it by herself now. So she is often off crafting to the side of me, whereas my son still loves to pop on my knee and help out with exactly what I am doing. So he's trying very hard to be super patient, and he just wants to get his little hands in there. I have a camera above me filming, and on that camera I have a little screen so that I can see and make sure that my hands and everything is in shot. So he is loving being able to see his little hands in that screen, and it translates down onto the work surface in front of us. He is going to help me do some heat embossing. I have my little hand here on the end of the embossing gun, so don't worry, he is not going to get anywhere near the heat. He was just loving helping out. Now this is the second one. I actually did a lot of these. And here I am saying, can you just show it up for a quick minute so we can show everybody what we've created? So that was your quick minute of seeing it. And these are the other ones that I did as well, from just different stencils. This is going to work with all the types of stencils that you have in my experience. I have a whole range from a whole lot of companies, even these beautiful intricate designs translated really well using this technique. Now, of course, we need to make some of these into some cards. So this is the layering ribbon bundle from Hero Arts, and this one comes with the stamps and a couple of little dies. Now I am just going to kind of whiz through this part quickly, but I'm stamping this out in some of the Morning Mist, which is a pigment ink, VersaFine clear pigment ink. And then I just really had fun experimenting with different colors and stamping off using first and second generations of inks to try and get different depths of color. But basically, this is the easiest layering set. This is what I like. This is what I need. I don't really do complicated layering sets very well. So I just had a whole lot of fun. I ended up making several of these, in fact, just because I was kind of on a roll. But I'm just going to whip through these ones. And then when it comes to the tree stump did there, I am going to do, there's kind of only 2 layers, so there's kind of the outside layer and then the inside layer, but I only have 1 brown pigment ink, so that's what I'm going to use. So I stamp the outside layer using full strength ink, and then for the layering piece I am just going to stamp this off once and then add it in, and that makes it look like it's kind of a lighter brown color when I just used 1 ink all along. So this is one of my main hacks when it comes to card making, looking as though I have several different inks that I'm able to use, when in reality I just have to store one of them. I have the 2 dies. These are just the 2 dies that come in the set, and I like how these die cut. They do not leave a really thick white border. They do leave a little white border, which is something something I don't always love, but for this set I actually quite like it. It works out quite well and it's barely much. It just makes it the perfect amount to be able to kind of line it up. So I have die cut out those. I have used a little banner die here that has some stitching around the outside. This is my All the Birthdays stamp set by Concord and 9th. You guys have seen this one before. This is a favorite, and it's a favorite for a reason because it has so many different ways of using these birthday stamps. I am going to set out a couple, and I'm actually going to add a couple together here to create a little bit of a different look as well. But first of all, the bottom one is going to be really nice and plain. This just says happy birthday. I am going to stamp this in some VersaFine Onyx black ink just with an acrylic block, and that is going to work out perfect. Then for this top one here, I've got this kind of, it's almost a little bit scripty looking birthday word, and this one is going to come in from the other side, so I'm making sure to have it centered to the right. And then I also just have these little happy birthday that is actually, it says happy and birthday there, but I am going to carefully ink up only the word happy, and then that is going to be nested in that word birthday there, and that is my other sentiment strip done. I have my 2 cards here, and I also have these. I'm trying to choose which ones I kind of want to do. They all look pretty good, so I chose one gold and one silver, and then I am going to cut these down just a little bit. I wasn't sure, and I do get asked a lot why I don't cut my pieces of paper down to begin with. But this is where it comes down to it. I want to pick the best parts of my, whatever I have produced, whatever project I've been working on. If anything is smudged a little bit, this gives me the opportunity to kind of cut it out, or if it didn't quite come out as I expected, this gives me an opportunity to kind of style and pick the piece of the project that I want to actually include. So I'm going to lay these down nice and flat. I don't need too much dimension in these because these ones are going to be going through the post. So I did just use some liquid glue that is the Ranger Multi-Medium in the matte finish, and I just pop it into these little glue bottles, which have been super handy. I've had them for a good couple of years now, and they have never clogged on me. They are really good. Now, I just wanted to show you, even decent card makers are going to do this. My measurements, perhaps when I was creating my card bases, were a little bit off, so I am going to trim that little edge off, and nobody is going to know that I actually didn't have it perfect to begin with. It happens to all of us, so if you have to do a little trimming here and there, nobody is going to know. This is going to be a very, very clean and simple card here on the right. I'm just leaving it, popping a sentiment on, and letting that gorgeous stencil speak for itself. As for the other one here, this is one I'm going to pop the little birdie on, so I'm popping the stump up on some foam dots. I decided to pop the little birdie up on some too, so that will give everything just a little bit of dimension, but not too much, especially since I just put the card front down nice and flat, so that will work out well. And then the birthday sentiment will go across the top too. So I hope that you have enjoyed this technique. This is an awesome technique. If you end up trying this out, or you were inspired by this video, then I have a Facebook page called Come Crafting with Natasha. That is the best place where you are able to post pictures and show me your creations. I love seeing it. We have an amazing community over there. So I will leave a link to that down in the description box below, as well as any of the supplies I have used today. I will leave links to those. That helps me out a whole lot, so I appreciate that so very much if you are able to use those. But other than that, thank you for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks, bye!